Let's fix it. We'll see if anybody joins today. Okay. Hello. I'll get started in just a minute, letting people join. Hello, welcome. Is that better? Hello. Good morning. Hello, good morning, or good afternoon, depending on where you are. It's afternoon where I am. Thank you. I'll get started in just a second. I'm just letting people flow in. Oh, I see. Hello. How's everyone's Tuesday? I keep thinking that today is Monday. My weekend was all backwards. Interesting. Hey everyone, thank you for joining. I'm gonna get started in just a second. I'll let people join. You know, it's really interesting though. I just pulled up this tweet and it says, I want to watch the new Top Gun. Has anyone seen it? Everyone keeps telling me to go see Top Gun. I still haven't seen it. I was supposed to go see it last week and I didn't. Same thing. I keep hearing, whether it's from you all or just in everyday life, everyone's like, you have to go see Top Gun. It's so good. Everyone. I know, I just hit 15K. That's so exciting. That happened on Sunday, I believe. So I'm very excited about that. Very cool. Let's see. Yes. Yep, we're definitely like a little over 15K. So that's exciting. You have these like periods on YouTube where you'll start to grow for a little while and then you'll kind of plateau out and then you start to grow again. So I plateaued at like, I can't remember what it was. I plateaued for a little while and then recently started growing again, which is very cool. Oh, soft or hard, red or green? I do, you know, soft tacos. Soft tacos. Because if I eat a hard shell taco, I break it up and I make nachos out of it. So soft tacos. Red or green? Do you mean salsa? I do have to say, if there was only one fast food chain that, if I could only have one fast food chain that I could eat for the rest of my life, it would be Taco Bell. I do actually make green salsa. I boil tomatillas and I use that as the base. It's really, really good. Red sauce or green sauce? Red sauce, but I don't really put sauce. I don't really put sauce on my taco. If it's a street taco, I just like the carne asada, cilantro, and onion. And no, but I do make green salsa. I make pico de gallo too. Jalapeno sauce. Ooh, I love jalapenos. I love making pico de gallo. There's a vegetable stand next to my house where I live right now, and I go there and get tomatoes, jalapeno, onion, cilantro, garlic, and I make homemade pico de gallo. It's so good and it's so fresh. And I usually I'll cut up about 4 or 5 tomatoes and I'll eat the whole thing. I'll eat the whole thing of pico de gallo in one night because it's so good. Okay, so I wanted to talk about I wanted to talk about are you inviting us all over tacos? Yes, it'll be a huge taco party. I love making tacos. It's such a good, it actually, I've always wanted to do a little party where you make a taco bar and everyone kind of builds their own tacos. I think that would be fun. And then a salsa bar with all kinds of different salsas. Pico is my fave. Avocado. Ooh, that would be good too. I've also been seeing this stuff. It's not necessarily I guess it's I don't know what it is. This thing called cowboy caviar looks really good too. It has beans, avocado, corn, jalapeno, all kinds of stuff. And it's supposed to be really good. Okay, so I want to talk about these woke corporations and sort of the culture that we're making. There's one corporation that actually pushed back and told some of their woke employees that they can leave. Hi, Glenn. So I want to talk about that. There's this Navy video that went out, and we'll listen to it and react to it together. And it's a video for the Navy. It's a training video for the Navy, and they're talking about safe spaces and pronouns. Oh my goodness. So we're going to look at all that. That's what we'll look at first. This new swimming rule, I'm sure you heard about it. How the basically International Organization of Swimmers, we'll look at that, but they basically, not totally, but they basically said that if a male goes through puberty and then decides to become transgender, you are not allowed to compete with women's sports. So we'll look at that. Megan Rapinoe, I don't know if you remember her. She's this soccer player who's I deserve this. And of course she has purple hair. But she actually weighed in on this and got a lot of backlash. So we'll look at that. We'll look at what's going on within the White House because I don't think it's very pretty. And that will be what we're doing. So, okay, first of all, right when I was pulling up this Navy training video, and we'll listen to it and react together. Tacos, the everyday food. So we'll look at this Navy training video together or listen to it together. But right before that, I pulled up this tweet, and this is by Jake Paul. Jake Paul, is he the older one or he's the younger one? So Jake Paul, I think we talked about him on this channel before. He's been having a lot of based takes. So if you don't know who Jake Paul is, I think he blew up on Vine. It was sort of TikTok before TikTok was TikTok, but it was this huge social media app where you could make I think 15-second videos. I don't remember, but he blew up on this social media app, and then he blew up on YouTube making prank videos. So his audience is much younger. And now I think he does boxing, right? He's in a lot of boxing fight. Anyway, he's a very influential person amongst younger people, and he's been having some really, really based takes. He was recently criticizing the Biden administration, and he just tweeted this out, and I thought this was interesting because this is right when I was going to talk about these woke corporations and how people my age, and I think the generation younger, are absolute babies. So this is what he tweeted out. Jake Paul, most young adults in this generation have no strength of character or ideals. They are constantly persuaded by the slightest thing or what they read on Twitter. They have no backbone for who they really are, just confirming what is trending. And that's what he just put out. I love that he has these takes, again, because he has such a young audience. And I think it's cool for them to hear this perspective. And I was just thinking about this too. I was thinking about leftist ideology. And the reason I was thinking about this is because the Lia Thomas story, you know, all of this talk about people who are trans and gender affirming ideology and stuff like this, it really, and we always use this term, the left eats itself. That's because a lot of their ideals conflict with each other. Like, you have feminists also thinking that it's okay for biological men to compete in women's sports. And it's like your ideology is conflicting. You're saying, women, you know, let's empower women, hashtag me too, believe all women in one breath. And then the other breath, you're actively working to silence women and to erase women from women's sports. And I think about this stuff, and I think all of these ideologies conflict with each other. And that's where the term, you know, the left eats itself comes from, is because of that. And I think it's because of what he said. You have this generation of young people who, they're not seeking truth. They have no backbone of character. They just go wherever the latest trend is. And that's exactly what he's talking about. That is why when you question people on their ideologies, if you watched Matt Walsh's What is a Woman, a lot of these people that are for gender ideology, once he started questioning them, asking them very basic questions, their ideology just completely collapsed, and it exposed how hollow it is, because they're not used to getting questions. They're not used to being questioned. They're used to just following whatever the latest thing is, and they're not seeking truth. They're seeking to affirm their own ideology, and that eventually will eat itself. That's why you have these feminists out here calling anyone a phobe who questions gender ideology. And it's like, you are advocating for your own demise and for the demise of women that are younger than you. And that's so funny to me to hear these women that are so quick to try to silence other women for speaking out against gender ideology, because it's like, you're literally speaking out against yourself. Like, do you hear yourself right now? And the reason they're doing it is because that's in their idea, that's the popular ideology, that's the progressive ideology, and they're seeking affirmation and not truth. That's why it always crumbles in on itself. But I'll get back to that in just a second, because I'm going to retweet that. I'm going to get back to that in just a second, because this Megan Rapinoe thing is the perfect example of that. So I'm putting a pin in that. We'll come back to it in a minute, but I want you to hear this. We're going to listen to this together. This Navy training video. This is the Navy, people. Okay, so this is the Navy's new training video for our service members to create a safe space by using preferred pronouns. These people have lost their minds. They won't stop until our troops ask enemies on the battlefield for their pronouns before they shoot. Oh gosh, okay. Please play. Oops, sorry. Excuse me. I'm having technical difficulty. Oh, here we go.
Hi, and I'm Kanchi, and I use...
Okay, you ready for this? We're gonna listen together.
Hi, my name is Johnny, and I use he, him pronouns.
Hi, and I'm Kanchi, and I use she, her pronouns.
And we're here to talk about pronouns.
What is a pronoun? A pronoun is how we identify ourselves apart from our name, and it's also how people refer to us in conversations.
Using the right pronouns is a really simple way to affirm someone's identity. It is a signal of acceptance and respect.
If it's a signal of acceptance and respect, how do we go about creating a safe space for everybody?
That's a good question. A really good way to do that is to use inclusive language. Instead of saying something like, hey guys, you can say, hey everyone, or hey team.
Yeah, and now that you say that, another way that we can show that we're allies and that we accept everybody is to maybe include our pronouns in our emails, or like we just did, introduce ourselves
yes, it is.
using our pronouns.
But what would I do if I misgender someone?
I think the first thing to recognize is that it's not the end of the world. You correct yourself and move on, or you accept the correction and move on. The most important thing I can tell you is do not put the burden of making you feel good about your mistake on the person that you just misgendered.
Oh, thank you for telling me that.
Yeah, and another tip for you to remember their pronoun next time is in your mind, kind of go through a progression of 3 good things about the person using the pronoun. So let's say the person chooses to use they, then you will in your mind go, they have a nice shirt, they have a nice smile, they are really smart. So that kind of sticks in your brain.
That is so helpful. I want to know, what would I do if I want to know someone's gender identity or pronouns?
The most important thing is do not pressure anybody into giving you their pronouns. Some people may be going through the process of discovery and they are not ready yet to tell you what their pronouns are. And that's
Okay, so I'm confused because I heard that you're supposed to ask people what their pronouns are, and now do you not ask them because is that pressuring them? I'm so confused.
yeah.
So I should just lead with my pronouns and they may follow or not, and if they don't, then I can just continue to use gender neutral language.
Yes, exactly. Just share something with you that happened the other day at a cookout I was at. We were talking about pronouns, and somebody was disagreeing with how different people see themselves as different pronouns, and the argument was, if you look like a female, then it's she, her, because that's what's normal. And if you make me call you something else, then you're infringing on my rights. And I was really taken aback by the comment, and I really wasn't sure how to respond. And the only thing I could really think quickly to say was, it's not about you at all. And it's mostly and ultimately about respect.
It is about respect. That's an important point to make, and I think you did the right thing. I think it's important to keep it short and simple. What I would have said to help them understand better is to talk about mispronouncing names. For example, my name is Johnny, spelled Jony, and it's normal for someone to pronounce my name like Joni, but if I were to tell you over and over again, my name is Johnny, and you insist on mispronouncing my name, I would feel disrespected by you. Some names are very difficult to pronounce, but do you know what is very easy to pronounce? She, he, they.
Okay, so that's what's going on with the Navy. I'm just looking at the comments now. The only pronouns the military should be concerned with is was, were after they kill our enemies. I have felt ever increasing pressure at work. Okay, this is someone's comment. I have felt ever increasing pressure at work to include my pronouns at every opportunity. So pressuring cis straight people is fine. Yeah, that's what I get from it too. Like, and I think I told you guys I was at Starbucks the other week, and I was just sitting there doing work on my computer, and right next to me there was a manager who was sitting at a table going through like new hire paperwork with an employee. And after he was done with the employee, it was a young girl, he introduced the employee with the more senior employee that was going to be training. And the senior employee goes, "Hi, I'm so-and-so. My pronouns are she, her, they. What are your pronouns?" And it was just, you could obviously tell that the other girl was uncomfortable. But it's just, it's almost like conflicting messages. It's like, we don't want to pressure people, but also you're pressuring people at the same time. It's so funny. And this is the Navy. Like, this is the type of stuff that we're concerned with over regular training duties. But just all of this stuff, this is, to me, one of the reasons why we have why people like my age and younger are so weak and so sensitive and so easily offended by everything. But I thought this was a really cool story. I actually saw this on Fox News, And this is CEO of crypto firm Kraken offers woke workers 4 months severance pay to quit after warning staff being offended doesn't make you harmed, and 30 take up on his offer. So the CEO of Kraken, one of the world's largest crypto exchanges, has offered employees 4 months of severance pay to quit if they are triggered by new policies cracking down on culture war debates in the workplace. And to me, like that's where this stuff leads. When you start injecting this stuff and making training videos and having this center of discussions at work, you're basically opening the door for all of these culture debates because not everyone agrees with it. Not everyone wants to do that. And when you're pushing this stuff on people, it's going to create distractions that have nothing to do with the end goal or the goals in general of your company. And that's what this CEO is saying. So, CEO Jesse Powell, 41 years old, issued the company's new culture guidelines in a memo on Wednesday, warning employees to stop calling each other toxic or racist or saying being offended doesn't necessarily make you right. On Twitter, Powell said that the new guidelines were prompted by a handful of employees, sparking heated debates over issues such as diversity, pronouns, and being harmed by violent words. Most people don't care and just want to work, but they can't be productive while triggered people keep dragging them into debates and therapy sessions. Guidelines published online take an aim at what libertarians and conservatives claim are attempts by some progressives to impose an authoritarian crackdown on free speech by claiming that words they disagree are violent. In a staff handbook posted online under the heading, "Someone must be offended some of the time," the firm writes, being offended doesn't necessarily make you harmed, and that words nor silence are ever violence. The same section continues, being offended doesn't necessarily make you right. We say we disagree and calmly challenge ideas with logic, reason, and better ideas. We do not call someone's words toxic, hateful, racist, xenophobic, or unhelpful, etc. In response, Powell is offering the severance package to any employee who disagrees with New Culture's statement, giving them until Monday to decide. Powell told Fox News in an interview on Friday that about 30 employees had taken the severance deals so far, or roughly 1% of Kraken's workforce of 3,000. We had a few people creating distractions for the whole company, and we had a bunch of people sympathizing with these people. So we thought it would be better if these people if they weren't comfortable here, then they just move on. I like this, CEO. Powell said that among the majority of employees, there were a huge amount of support for this move, huge amount of support for the company culture and the mission and the reinforcement of those. And I think everyone's just ready to get back to work and to stop being distracted. That's the door that opens for this stuff. And I think, the new company guidelines include a lengthy section on internal communications and warns that avoiding feelings of offense is not the company's primary goal. If nobody is ever offended, we either don't have enough diversity of thought or we don't have enough transparency and communication. The policy bans calling someone's words toxic, hateful, racist, xenophobic, unhelpful, etc. The guidelines were released on the same day that the New York Times published a lengthy article detailing the culture wars within Kraken's workplace. The article, citing 5 Kraken employees and internal documents, said that some workers accused Powell of fostering a hateful workplace and damaging their mental health. In one instance, he reportedly asked his employees, if you can identify as a sex, can you identify as a race or ethnicity? He also questioned their use of preferred pronouns and led a discussion about who can refer to another person as the N-word. Powell also reportedly mused his questions about differences of intelligence and risk appetite between men and women and are not settled as one might have initially thought. As a part of a Wednesday's announcements, Kraken said that he was seeking to hire 500 new employees even as competitors shed staff amid a sharp downturn in the crypto market. On Friday evening, Bitcoin was trading at, okay, we don't care about that. Powell describes himself as a libertarian and previously said that Bitcoin is the embodiment of libertarian values. He attended California State University. Okay, So that's what happened. The same thing actually recently happened at the Washington Post. You had an employee at the Washington Post. Her name was Felicia. We looked at the story together. A person at the company, I believe he's a journalist at the company, retweeted something, and it was a joke about women. He said there are only two types of women that are bi. He said bipolar and bisexual or something. I don't know. It was just a silly joke, and he retweeted it. He didn't even write the joke. I thought the joke was funny, and this is on his Twitter account. This wasn't even at work. And this girl, Felicia, said all these like awful tweets about him, was talking about how this was like misogynistic and toxic, and these are the type of people that the Washington Post hires. Well, guess what? She's the one that got let go. You can't go around being offended by everything, and this is what the culture of safe spaces and, you know, respecting everyone's pronouns. I'm not saying that you should actively go and disrespect people, but all of these safe spaces, all of this talk is creating people that are too soft, that do not know how to be in society. And I'm so glad that this CEO actually put his foot down and said, hey, if you don't like this, you can leave. And I think that was really nice of him to say, I'll offer you 4 months severance, but please, if you are unhappy with the culture here, you can go somewhere. And I like what he did. And I think that more and more you'll see people start to push back against this, because it's just getting out of hand and out of control. As you see here. They created, I didn't know that. Glenn said they created a comic book character called Safe Space. But he's right. Everyone should be offended some of the time. That means that there is diversity of thought happening. And all of the people that scream diversity, they hate diversity of thought. All right, now I want to get to this story. So I'm sure you guys heard. Finally, sanity prevailed in the world of women's sports. So this is definitely a step in a positive direction. I don't think it's good enough, and I'll tell you why, but it is a step in the right direction. Okay, so swimming, we've talked a lot about Lia Thomas, who went through male puberty, trained as a male, was on UPenn's swim team for the men, was ranked 462 in men, and then decided that he wanted to transition to be a female, started taking a testosterone suppressant, and was able to join the women's swim team. All of a sudden went from 462 in men's, was now #1 in women's. Lia also said was just dominating the sport. A lot of women on the team were really upset about it and spoke out anonymously about it. And a lot of people were criticizing UPenn and the NCAA because it was within the guidelines of the rules set by the NCAA, but people were criticizing it, saying it wasn't fair. You needed only eyes to realize that this was not okay. This was not fair. So this just happened. Also, Lia Thomas was on, I think it was Good Morning America, giving an interview, and was talking about how, Lia was talking about how, you know, all the way to the Olympics, swimming with women. Well, that's not going to be happening now. Lia will not be swimming or competing in elite sports, thankfully. So it says Swimming World's governing body, FINA, announced a ban Sunday on biological men competing in women's events unless they had transitioned before the age of 12. In other words, transgender athletes who have experienced the enduring competitive advantages of male puberty flooded with testosterone, such as greater muscle mass, lung capacity, and height, will no longer have the unfair advantage in women's competitions. The unfairness was clear when University of Pennsylvania transgender swimmer Lia Thomas started blitzing the competition. A mediocre swimmer, when she competed against males, she became a superstar in the pool against women after she swapped genders. Thomas went from okay, so they're using actually a worse ranking than I had. Thomas went from 554th ranked male in the 200 freestyle to the fastest woman in the 500 freestyle at the NCAA championships this year. Her teammates were so cowed by the oppressive atmosphere policed by gender zealots and their Kraken University that they were forced into silence or anonymous griping. But the FINA ban is a promising sign that the pendulum is swinging back to normalcy in the gender madness we have been living through, which has caused irreversible damage to a generation of children. And it's a slap in the face to the Biden administration's embrace of gender ideology as some sort of moral crusade. Joe Biden probably thought his executive order last week advancing equality for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and intersex individuals was a winner twice over. It would earn him social cred in Pride Month, and it was one in the eye of the ghastly Trump 2.0 Ron DeSantis, who had signed a law banning Florida schools from teaching kindergartners about sexual orientation and gender identity. The president's radical order overrides the state laws which protect parents' rights in girls' sports, and it promotes transgender drugs and surgery for children. But it will backfire on him spectacularly at the ballot box as parents wake up to the damage of this near decade of cruel experimentation on children. The tide is turning as more detransitioners, now young adults, tell their tales of woe. The Pulse told some of their stories over the weekend. Chloe decided she was transgender at 12, was placed on puberty blockers and prescribed testosterone at 13, and had a double mastectomy at 15. By 16, she realized it was all a mistake, but testosterone had masculinized her jawline, broadened her shoulder, and given her facial hair, and may have stolen her fertility. She wants her troubles to serve as a cautionary tale for other girls and their parents. None of this is to marginalize those people who suffer genuinely from gender dysphoria, feeling they are trapped in the body of the wrong sex, and who have found peace in surgery and hormones as adults. But the sharp increase in 13 to 24-year-olds who identify as transgender in the U.S. is alarming. It has nearly doubled since 2017, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, as is the explosion of gender clinics for children. Disproportionate numbers of young people who go to gender clinics are reported to be autistic or have poor mental health, which makes the rush to feed them hormones and mutilate their bodies all the more reprehensible. What we see is that the medical profession is not proceeding with caution, as they did in the watchful waiting era when most kids grew out of any gender confusion, with some just being gay. An attempt to normalize the idea of very young transgender children appeared, shockingly enough, on Fox News recently in a story about a trans teen who came out as a boy at the age of 5. It was couched in the familiar activist mantra, "It's better to have a live son than a dead daughter." This is obscene emotional blackmail meant to frighten parents by claiming that if they don't go along unquestionably with their toddler's gender whims, he or she will end up committing the offing of themselves. YouTube friendly. In any case, the data suggests that puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones do not prevent suicides. In fact, they may increase the risk, according to a report released last week by the Heritage Foundation. Heritage compared annual youth offing rates in the states that allow children to cross-sex treatments without parental consent to states that do not, and found a gap emerged after 2010 when puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones started to be used. By 2020, the youth offing rate in the easy access states was 14% higher than in the states where parental consent was required for treatment. The conclusion: easier access to puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones by minors actually exacerbated the offing rates. Science does not demonstrate that puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones are necessary to prevent suicides or offings. Try not to say that word. YouTube doesn't like it. In fact, if anything, it demonstrates the opposite. The emotional blackmail of gender activists, blindly parroted by the media, only has served the interests of multi-billion-dollar trans tech industry in which cynical pharmaceutical companies pump children with cancer-causing, fertility-destroying chemicals to stop puberty or to induce cross-sex characteristics. None of that could happen without the enthusiastic participation of medical professionals who turn their backs on the central obligation: do not harm the patient. In a just world, the doctors who sliced off teenagers' breasts, filled their bodies with damaging chemicals, would go to jail. No doubt, class actions are coming. I can see this. Okay, so there's several things I wanted to point out from this article. The first thing I wanted to point out is, so at the last part of the article, this is the New York Post, by the way. At the last part of the article, it was talking about how damaging it was to transition young kids at an early age. Pay attention to what FINA did. And this is my fear. And this was a really good point that was brought up by Matt Walsh. He's the one in the What is a Woman documentary. So he pointed out how this ruling is good, and it's definitely going to help women's sports in the short term. But listen to what they said. Listen to the language here. Swimming World's governing body, FINA, announced a ban Sunday on biological men competing in women's events unless they had transitioned before the age of 12. So there's this huge push. Gender-affirming therapists, the medical industry, for pushing kids to transition at a young age. Think about this. This is yet another reason to push a transition at a much younger age. Do you get what I'm saying? That's my problem with this. Is that, and I don't think this was intentional at all, but you are just giving these people who say that you need to transition kids medically at a younger age, you're giving them more reason to do that. Another thing is these people aren't giving kids room to go through a phase or to figure things out by themselves. Because what you have, you're like, Mom, I think I might be a boy. Or in some instance, these kids are just gay. And that's really all it is. Kids need to be allowed to... I said this before, in so many of these instances, I used to work with teenagers, and we actually had a few girls at the time who wanted to identify as boys. And for a majority of them, it was kind of just a phase. But imagine if this stuff was pushed on them and they did surgeries or these puberty blockers or any of these things that have lasting permanent effects. That's what really scares me. Like, give children or kids or teenagers the room to have phases, the room to explore who they are without pushing things on them that is permanent. Yes, I'm still live. I'm live right now. Fish Tank, I'm about to block you. Hold on a second. Hello. Can somebody block Fish Tank? I can't do it right now. I'm getting tired of seeing messages about the girls. Like, be an adult. Thank you. Anywho. Oh, there it is. I'm trying to... Did that person go away? I can't get into block it because I'm actually on my phone. There's a noise on my phone, I just realized. I think I know why that is. No, I try to give people, is he gone? Or her, I don't know what it is. The fish, is the fish gone? I can't get into block. No, I try to give people the benefit of the doubt, but it's all the time, even on videos, there are comments like that, and just enough is enough. Okay, I will fix that. I'll fix that. I apologize. It might be that for the rest of the live right now, but I'll make sure that doesn't happen. Okay, sorry about that. Hey, can one of the moderators please block? I can't get in there right now. Oh, here we go. Okay, I did it. Okay, Oh, you were doing it at the same time? Okay. All right, I got it. I put him in timeout. It literally said, put user in timeout. No, it was several videos too. Every video, that person's like, where are the girls? It's like, okay, enough is enough. All right. Okay, so we were talking about Lia Thomas and women's sports, and at the beginning of the live stream, I was talking about how ideologies with the left, they conflict with each other. They go on top of each other. And this is an example of that. So it was just a small problem. It was a big deal. I just didn't feel like looking at it today with fish person. Okay, so this is Megan Rapinoe. You remember, she's the soccer player. She always has short hair. She was the vocal one that said, you know, women in soccer need equal pay. She's a huge feminist. She has that infamous video where she was like, she got her soccer award and was like, I deserve this. That's Megan Rapinoe. How can you forget? I believe she now models for Victoria's Secret. Victoria's Secret did their revamp. Okay, so it says, leading women's soccer player Megan Rapinoe caught the wrath of social media users on Tuesday for arguing that female athletes and their parents need to get over the advantages of biologically male transgender athletes have over girls' sports. Unbelievable. Exactly. Thank you, TNN, for bringing that point up. That might be later on in this article, but she, more than anyone, should understand what an advantage a biological male has. But here you have it. This feminist whose ideologies don't seem to add up together. Actually, they do. Actually, you know what? I take that back, because according to leftist ideology, 2 + 2 = 5. So when you think about it, it does add up, technically, according to her logic. Rapinoe told Time Magazine in an interview published Sunday that she is 100% supportive of trans inclusion in female sports, dismissing concerns over fairness. She said, I would also encourage everyone out there who's afraid that someone's going to have an unfair advantage over their kid to really take a step back and think what we're actually talking about here. We're talking about people's lives. I'm sorry your kid's high school volleyball team just isn't that important. The true colors cometh outeth. Oh. Daily Wire editor Ben Shapiro wrote, just a note, if biological males were allowed to play against U.S. women's national soccer team, Megan Rapinoe and crew would get their asses kicked by a bunch of junior high boys. This is true. Shapiro then linked to a 2017 story from CBS Sports about an under 15 boys academy besting the U.S. women's national team in a scrimmage. I got mine. F them kids. Conservative writer Jim Treacher mocked Rapinoe. So basically he's mocking Rapinoe for being like, well, I got all my awards. I already did everything. So F the younger people. Go ahead and cry about it. Taylor White said, wasn't Megan Rapinoe whose team got defeated by a bunch of high school boys? Yes. Rapinoe is also the one complaining that males get paid more than females. PR professional Vanessa Santos criticized Megan Rapinoe. She said Megan Rapinoe can safely say these things because she's near retirement and she isn't in danger of being replaced by a transgender athlete. She's doing nothing to preserve the future of female sports. Megan Rapinoe is selfish. I think we already knew that Megan Rapinoe is selfish. The kids' soccer moms might be Rapinoe. You might be right. But it's selfish. And this is a prime example of a lot of these like super vocal social justice warriors or these like social justice activists. Usually all of this social justice and all this shaming that they do for anyone that doesn't agree with them, it's usually their own faulty character that's guised as social justice. So Megan Rapinoe, to me, seems to be a narcissist. She seems to be a bully. She seems to be selfish, which I guess goes in line with narcissism, but she can get away with having that terrible personality and even be praised under the guise of social justice. When you really look at a lot of these like very vocal social justice warriors, it's usually just a cloak. It's their own terrible character cloaked as social justice. And they get away with they get away with bullying. They get away with being a narcissist because they're using this cloak of social justice. And then society is like, oh my gosh, you're so wonderful. You're standing up for social justice. No, you're just a selfish, narcissistic bully. And that to me is what Megan Rapinoe is. And that's what a lot of these, when you really start to take away the layers and really look at who they are, this is what they always are. Megan Rapinoe has 2 World Cup medals and an Olympic gold thanks to sex segregation in sports. If there was not sex segregation in sports, no one would know who Megan Rapinoe is. And keep in mind, she used that sex argument to say that we're not paid enough. Megan Rapinoe has 2 world medals and Olympic gold thanks to sex segregation in sports. Her team couldn't beat 15-year-old schoolboys. At a recent UK cycling race, trans and non-binary males were allowed to race against cis women. Men took 10 out of the 12 podium places. Here's the thing, Megan Rapinoe is a liar, conservative pundit Ian Hayworth wrote. She just thinks she's safe. The moment a man takes her roster spot, she'll be outraged, as she should. And I would actually agree with her outrage on that position. But you see, she's taking the social justice route and really just, this was someone who was supposed to speak for women, who was supposed to be a feminist, and now she's throwing women under the bus when she feels it's convenient for her, because now she doesn't have skin in the game. Yes, by all means, crush the dreams, spirits, and dignity of children, as long as it provides ideological satisfaction to rich and famous adults. Yeah. Someone said, this just in an unprecedented but needed move, the entire United States men's soccer team has just announced that they all identify as women. The United States Soccer Federation has released the following response. We couldn't be more thrilled. And she literally said, I'm sorry, your kid's high school volleyball team just isn't that important. How did she get her start out? Sports are really important for young people, and this is coming from someone who doesn't play a sport. I snowboarded and I skateboard a little bit. I'm a very intermediate skateboarder, so that's about the extent of, and I hike, but I don't even know if you can call that a sport. Those are the extent of my sports. Everything else is just exercise, essentially. So this is not coming from someone who has a sports background, but I can recognize how important sports are for young people. Even if you don't end up pursuing that sports, learning a team sport, learning how to go out there, learning how to win, how to be competitive, how to push yourself, also learning how to lose sometimes. Those are so important for people. And imagine, like, just, it is important. Maybe you're not looking to get a volleyball scholarship or to be on an Olympic volleyball team. Maybe that's not your goal, but it does a lot of things for you, especially young women. So, you know, in high school, you know, having men beat out of something that's supposed to be segregated by sex, I can imagine the damage that already does on really vulnerable young women. Like being a teenage, I know being a teenage boy is hard too, but being a teenage girl is hard. You're insecure, you're uncomfortable in your skin, you know, you're learning things. So to already be beat out by boys at such a young age, even if your goal is not to be an Olympic volleyball player, it's so incredibly insensitive and just throws young girls under the bus, her statements. Yeah, isn't this the same girl who cried about fairness in pay, asking for the same amount as the men's team made until the association caved? You were sure concerned with the fairness for women back then. I guess now that she has her stack of cash, she doesn't need to worry about her spot on the roster. Exactly. And again, this goes into my point how all of these ideologies conflict because none of them are based in truth. And she doesn't actually care about fairness. She doesn't actually care about truth. She cares about being ideologically right. That's why you have women like her. You have these raging feminists that are now all for silencing women, that are now all for the erasure of women's sports, gender ideology. Very funny. And this goes for every feminist principle, just hollows out under gender ideology. Okay, this should be a fun read. I always like to hear the inner workings of the Biden administration. Vice President Kamala Harris, who, by the way, has been... I haven't seen a lot of her recently at all. Vice President Kamala Harris has suffered a steady exodus out of... If I turn off, I apologize. I'm going in and out of connection. I don't know what's happening. Maybe someone's watching me. A spat of resignations by high-profile aides to President Joe Biden has left the remaining White House staff frustrated as they toil with a crumbling domestic agenda, sky-high inflation, the war in Ukraine, and dimming prospects for Democrats in November elections. Do you want to know how bad it is? It was actually, oh gosh, I can't remember where. I know. It froze when I said her name. I actually saw a publication. I cannot for the life of me remember who it was. I'm very sad about that. But there was a publication saying how a Kamala Harris Pete Buttigieg ticket would dominate. I was like, are you kidding me? That's what you have? That's what you have? Okay. A high turnover at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, critics say, is a sign that those surrounding Mr. Biden are increasingly worried about a Democratic bloodbath at the polls and the prospects of Republican majorities in the House and Senate. A GOP takeover on Capitol Hill would be the death knell for the Bidens' already stalled agenda and guarantee an onslaught of congressional investigations of the administration. I hope so. Among the latest changes is former Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms being called in to replace Cedric Richmond, one of Biden's most senior aides. As director of the White House Office of Public Engagement, beginning in the coming weeks, Bottoms will immediately have access to most high-level planning and strategy sessions within the West Wing and to the president himself. There was an all-out staff shakeup in the White House Communications Office as former White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki departed for MSNBC. And while staffers usually serve just 2 to 3 years in the high-pressure job, it's unusual for so many to be leaving so soon, a sign of bad things on the horizon, one GOP analyst said. This is probably going to go down in history as one of the worst administrations. So I wouldn't want to be a part of that. It's a mass exodus before midterms. Jimmy Keedy, a Republican strategist, told The Times, someone will be to blame, and it's not going to be Joe Biden's terrible policies. Heads will roll after the midterms, and in politics, responsibility runs downhill. No one wants to be holding the bag at the end. The exodus from the Veep's office followed a spat of bad press for Harris, with some staffers saying her office is dysfunctional and she is a bully who levels soul-destroying criticism. One report said that the top elected officials in the country are not on the friendliest of terms, prompting desperate Harris to defend her position, slamming the media for gossip. The reports about a dysfunctional office emerged first on CNN. Many current and former West Wing aides say Vice President Kamala Harris is not being adequately prepared or positioned and instead is being sidelined, causing frustration among staffers. I mean, the thing about Kamala Harris, I also read when that news was coming out about her office being dysfunctional, they were saying that she doesn't like to prepare before public appearances. And you can tell because when she gets asked, I often wonder, I'm like, who is prepping her? Like, who is on her team prepping her? Because people will ask her the most obvious of questions that you know you're going to get asked. Just the most basic, obvious questions, and she can't answer them. Like when she was asked, there was that one interview where she was being asked, so this was like right after she was named the border czar, which she still hasn't been to the border. You know that after this announcement comes that you've been in charge of the border, people are going to ask you if you've been to the border. And every time she was asked that question, she would start laughing uncomfortably. And there was that one time where she said, well, I also haven't been to Europe yet, so I don't understand the point you're making. The question was, oh, have you been to the border? Well, I also haven't been to the border. I don't understand the point you're making. That's how she answers questions. Like, you know, you don't have a better answer than that. You don't have anything else prepared. That's all you have, and you have a team behind you. More Kamala Harris wisdom, like sands through the hourglass. There's, I think it's Blaze TV. One of the guys that works for Blaze TV, that's Glenn Beck's channels, he does Veep Thoughts with Kamala Harris. It's pretty good. Veep Thoughts. We must work together so that together we can work on working together. Together. That was one of my favorite ones. Who is writing this crap? I feel like I know 5th graders that can write better speeches. Whoa. Hold on. Lia Thomas is trending on Twitter. Some of the world's top swimmers have been left divided by a decision to effectively ban transgender athletes by the age of 12. Thank you so much, Brady. I'm very interesting. Oh, okay. All right, let's look at this piece. This is the Washington Examiner. This is about Lia Thomas. It's just going to take a year to... Oh, there we go. Wow, okay. This is spicy. So this is the Washington Examiner, an opinion piece. It says, I'm going to take a sip of Diet Coke. It says, Lia Thomas, the controversial swimmer from the University of Pennsylvania, recently gave an interview on Good Morning America. During the segment, so this was a few weeks ago. We talked about it on this channel. During this segment, Thomas talked about the past swim session and how transitioning allowed him to be fully happy. But while that may have been great for Lia Thomas, some of his former teammates felt differently. In an exclusive interview, one of the swimmers who swam with Thomas last season spoke to me on the condition of anonymity about Thomas's Good Morning America appearance. Okay, so this is one of Lia's teammates who watched the Good Morning America appearance. I haven't heard any reaction from the teammates yet. She says, you can tell he is mentally ill. I saw the video and was so disgusted. Wow. When I asked her to clarify, she explained how Lia Thomas was not grounded in reality and was instead so consumed with his own life that he failed to acknowledge any damage he inflicted upon his real female teammates. She also mentioned the damage Thomas caused the female sports and the opportunities he took away from real female swimmers, both on UPenn and the NCAA. Lia's experience was his alone, and many suffered so that he could benefit. Lia identified as a woman, but she is not a female. In fact, it doesn't matter how you feel. Wow. This is spicy. The swimmer found fault with Lia's glib attitude about his happiness, which took precedence over the happiness of many of the real women on the team. His lack of empathy and concern for the females who were forced to sacrifice their rights and happiness because of Lia was at the root of the UPenn swimmers' disdain. When women were forced to give up their roster spots, be uncomfortable in locker rooms, and losing races and championships all because of Lia Thomas. When asked about the question of fairness, Lia said, well, I'm happy. Lia completely ignored the question, dodged the question. The UPenn swimmer said, if you want to talk about happiness, what about everyone else's happiness? What about mine? What about my teammates? She also highlighted the damage Lia did to the female competitors at this year's swimming championships. What about the swimmers who Lia bumped out of medals at the NCAA championships? What about the girl who finished 9th in finals? The girl that finished 17th? The girl who finished second to Lia? What about their happiness? What about their hard work? And to say, oh, well, I'm happy. is just so narcissistic, and not even to acknowledge how the other girls might feel. It's selfish and disgusting. Wow. Lia Thomas stated that he didn't need anybody's permission to be a woman or to compete as a swimmer, but in reality, that's not true. First, he needed the permission from the NCAA. Next, no matter what the misguided, agenda-driven experts in the NCAA and Ivy League say, Thomas should not have been permitted to do the sport he loves by infringing on the rights of female competitors to fair competition. Additionally, there were potential Title IX violations because of Lia's swimming, and also the issue of this is what blows my mind more than anything. This part right here. And also the issue of college-aged girls being forced to share a locker room with a male, a situation that made many uncomfortable. Sadly, these complaints from females on their team fell on deaf ears at the University of Pennsylvania. The sheer arrogance of Lia Thomas in this instance is something that should be noted. Lia may not have needed anyone's permission, but that was only because those in charge abused their authority and suppressed the rights of college. Thinking anything else is mentally ill. It proves that Lia only cared about prioritizing Lia's happiness above everyone else's. It is absurd. You don't deserve to compete with women. Men deserve to compete with men. It is the basis for which there are separate leagues. No amount of woke nonsense or the pressure from the trans supporters mob should change this. The experts were on the wrong side of history. Wow, that was very well put out. That's the whole bathroom thing gets me more than anything, because a lot of girls mentioned seeing the male parts in the bathroom and being really uncomfortable, and I'm just thinking in my head, where are these girls' fathers? Like, what? This is insane. When the athletes at UPenn raised concerns about fairness, they were threatened with removal from the team and being made unemployable. Compare their annoyance statement to FINA's expert statement. They expressed the same concerns. These women are owed an apology. They are owed an apology. A huge apology. They're owed a lot more than an apology. And I think that article pointed it out pretty nicely. These girls were failed by the experts. The experts were wrong. And this tweet says, again, bear in mind, Lia still has full male genitalia and is still attracted to women and doesn't care how cis women feel uncomfortable when she insists on using the women's changing room. Zero sympathy. Selfish and self-centered beyond belief. And this is not in any way against anyone wanting to live how they want to live. This is just saying your rights should not infringe on another person's. Yeah, and for a while, I think it was up until that Good Morning America interview, when Lia was asked, you know, what about the question of unfair, and that's the question that girl was responding to. I had the frame of mind, you know what, Lia is acting within the rules, but after that interview, when asked the question, what do you have to say to the people that say that this is unfair, or for the swimmers that think this is unfair? And Lia answered the question by saying, well, I'm happy. After that, like, any sympathy towards this individual was absolutely gone. And the fact that, you know, the locker room situation, like, maybe go into a stall and change. Like, be aware that you still have these certain parts and it's going to make people uncomfortable. Like, the lack of, there's just no empathy. There's no awareness of anyone else. And, you know, maybe go into a clothes stall and change, or go away from the other women and change. Unbelievable. All right, dudes, I think that's everything. Did you see the Fox News video showing the cadets at West Point being taught CRT? Was that a while ago? So Shaq, exactly, it's within the rules, man. Was that a while ago? I think I know what you're referring to. And I just think none of that has any place in any sort of government agency, any sort of military training, anything. Like all of that, they should have one focus and one focus only. It was on today's show. I didn't see it. I'll have to look at it. I will look at that. All right, everybody. Well, have a really good Tuesday. Eat some tacos. Have some salsa. Some pico de gallo. Fox News is controlled opposition. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Thank you. Shaq in a dress dunking on cheese. Dudes. Some people might think that's offensive. All right, I'll see you later. You all have a great afternoon. Bye.